In this video, I'd like to talk about something called area filtering, or area filters. Most online networking libraries have a concept very similar to this, and the nature about how they go about doing it might be slightly different, but it exists for most of them. Area filters basically solves the problem of who are we going to send data to, especially when clients are very far away or don't care about specific types of data or specific sets of data. Let me explain. Say we have a single server and we have 4 clients connected to it. And all 4 of these clients are playing my newest and latest and greatest dungeon crawler. It's a game similar to Diablo or Dungeon Siege or any of those other games like that. There's 2 main areas in my game, and one of them is back here, the village, where the NPCs are, and it's where you can buy items and equipment. The other main area of my game is the dungeon area, which is down here. And in here, it's a bunch of winding caverns, and there's a huge epic boss encounter at the very end of it. Now, clients A and B are back here in town. Their players are currently trading or buying items or something else along those lines. Clients C and D are down here raiding the dungeon and fighting bosses and monsters and just having a blast, right? Now, because my game world is so large, one of the things that I may have done is I may actually have something like streaming levels, where as my client moves into the dungeon, I actually unload this area of the world, or as I move back into town, I unload this area of the world, meaning that these 2 areas are just broken up. If you're building this in Unity, these 2 areas are broken up into different scenes. When I go up here, I'm in one scene, and when I'm down here, I load a separate scene. As a caveat to that, it means that when I'm down here, these clients down here, C and D, they don't even have these players loaded in their game. And same thing with clients A and B. They don't have these players loaded in their game. If they were to go and look at all the game objects that their games are currently running right now, it would be everything here in the town, the NPCs, the other player with them, but these 2 wouldn't exist. Now the problem lies where if these are networked objects, it means that they're going to be sending their position, rotation information over the network to the server, and it's going to be going down to all 4 clients, which is something that we don't really want. These 2 clients will essentially just receive the position information of these objects and essentially say, I don't know who you are. So what we need is something called area filtering. Area filtering allows us to break our worlds into logical areas. And notice I said logical, even though I'm using sort of these like spatial areas, but areas can be logical and you can use them for whatever you'd like. I'll talk about that a little more in a second. Let's say I break up my world into 2 areas, the 2 areas that your client could ever be into. Client or area 1 and then area 2. Clients A and B are in area 1, and clients C and D down here are in area 2. Now, when these objects send position information over the network, because they're only in this one area, they will send position information only to these specific clients, only into the clients in areas 2, right? Now, this seems really great, except for the possibility exists where you are transitioning from one to another, or there are objects that move between these, right? So really what we need to do is we need to say that not only are these clients in areas 1 or 2, but these objects are also in those areas. So these objects here are both in area 1. These objects here are both in area 2. And then objects, just to confuse everyone a little bit more, objects and clients can actually be in multiple areas at the same time. Imagine I wrote an administrator client or a game master client for this, and I want to be able to fly across the world really quick. Or I want to be able to just zoom out and I want to see the whole world. Meaning that I want another client. We'll have another client here. Here's my 5th client, which maybe this one doesn't have a player, and maybe this client is actually in areas 1 and 2 at the same time. Meaning that as objects in area 2 send information up, they go to this client, as well as C and D. And when objects in area 1 send their information up to the server, they get broadcasted out to clients A and B, as well as this client up here, right? So this is essentially the idea of area filtering. It allows your game objects as well as your clients to specify which areas they're in, so that as they're sending information, they'll know who to send it to. Now, the server is the one who actually tracks all this information. So your client is mainly just responsible for saying, I would like to be in area 1, or I'd like to be in area 2. And then as you leave area 1, it needs to say, I'd like to be removed from area 1. And then same thing with your game objects. When you instantiate a player, you would need to say, I want my player to be with me in area 1. To do this, there's a couple different functions. In the client network, there's a function called add to area, and you specify just an integer. Same thing with the networked objects. There's on the network sync, there is a function called add to area, and you just specify an integer of which area you want to be in. Definition of where the areas are or how you define them is entirely up to you and entirely up to your project. I've worked on projects previously where these are trigger volumes or scenes or something similar. The last thing I'll note is for most simple games, like if you were building an online tic-tac-toe game or a checkers game or something where you don't have a big world like this, or if you look at the example server and example client, all the objects and all the clients just simply get added to one area ID 1. Essentially what that is doing is it's doing something very similar to this, where it just says, you know what, everyone is together in one giant area, and whenever you send information, it just goes to everyone. That's the easiest and simplest way to start working on your game.